Good morning to you. So can you confirm that these restrictions will be reimposed on New South Wales pubs?
Well, the Premier will be making an announcement about that later on this morning. She's made some comments and I've been in conversations with her and the Police Commissioner overnight. But there will have to be more restrictions. So these restrictions aren't there as a punishment. They're certainly not a reflection of the way the majority of hoteliers have managed the return to normal business practices. But we just can't have a repeat of the Crossroads, and any new restrictions announced today by the Premier will be a way of mitigating that.
Why keep it to pubs though, Minister? Why not extend it to, restaurants and other places as well? What's the difference?
Well, the number of reasons. One of the reasons, of course, is the fact that in pubs you tend to see some movement a lot more in a venue, and because at the moment we wanted to make sure that we don't introduce unnecessary burdens on the hospitality industry. And at the moment, the only area that really seems to be needing to be tightened up has been public bars and public hotels.
Okay, well that makes sense. So when is this going to begin? When is it in effect?
Well, the Premier will be making that announcement this morning. She has been in communication with the Hotel Association over the last 72 hours. I've spoken to them as recently yesterday afternoon, and I've got to congratulate them. They've been very, very proactive, and I think that is a reflection of the fact that they know the only people that are going to suffer if we have to go back into lockdown will be the hoteliers and their patrons.
All right. Apparently things got heated last night between Dominic, Peretti and John Barrow, Lara. Can you confirm, Minister?
I certainly wouldn't be speculating on any conversation between my colleagues, but I can tell you that there's a lot of passion in the New South Wales Cabinet because we want to make sure we do the right thing by the community. We want to make sure we get out of this as quickly and as safely as possible.
Okay. Well, why isn't the messaging getting through, though, Minister? You saw those queues at the Golden Sheaf. You saw those huge crowds attend East's club on the weekend, and you've got this outbreak now at the Crossroads Hotel. And you've got the casino situation as well. What is it about your messaging that isn't getting through?
Well, I think our messaging is getting through. I mean, these are incidents that are not necessarily incidents that are occurring regularly. The Golden Sheath was just disgraceful. It was disgraceful not just because the hotelier should have probably got out there and told people to move out, but the people themselves have got to take responsibility for their own actions. I mean, whether they be waiting out the line of a hotel or waiting to go and use an automatic teller machine, they just shouldn't be lining up like that. And I know it's difficult. I mean, I've been guilty of laxes as well, and I'm sure you have, Peter.
Yeah.
But this was for this was for half an hour with a whole group of people going into going inside a venue that has only just really been able to open. So the appeal is to just don't be complacent. Don't always make sure that you realise that this is a new way of doing business, and that includes making sure you keep 1.5 metres away from each other.
Are you looking at increasing penalties?
Oh, not just yet. I mean, there is a 6-month prison sentence there attached to it, and there's up to $50,000 in financial penalty as well. So, I mean, I'd hate to see the time where somebody who's made an honest mistake has to do a 6-month jail stint. That's not where we want to go. This can't be seen as punitive. It can't be seen as some sort of punishment. This is all about making sure people get into their head that there is a new way of behaving in public.
Will Crossroads be fined?
That's a matter for the police. I obviously only get myself in trouble when I interfere with police operations, so that's a matter for the Police Commissioner, which I suspect that what you'll find is that there will be thorough investigation. I spoke to Assistant Commissioner Cook about that yesterday. He's not happy about the situation that's gone down there, but today it's all focusing on making sure that everybody that may have been exposed gets that COVID-19 test.
Well, will that be the COVID app? That's a dud, though, isn't it?
Well, it's not just the COVID app. I mean, I know the Commonwealth have said some things about the app overnight because it's a Commonwealth app. But what I want to make sure people know is that there's no silver bullet in any of this. It's an app. It's registering when you go into a licensed premises. It's making sure if you feel unwell you go to see a doctor. It's making sure that you keep 1.5 metres away from everybody. There is a big menu of things that we need to continue to pursue if we want to make sure that the pandemic doesn't continue.
Okay, you want to, and the Premier's confirmed this morning, she wants to put a cap on 300 patrons. What's the reasoning behind 300? Why that number?
Well, that's a figure that has been presented to us from the Australian Hotels Association. Right. So that's their appreciation of what makes it safe for them, how they can monitor the patrons, of course, how many they can register, what the demand would be, because they don't want to have an unforeseen circumstance where there are every time they open a pub, there's going to be 500 people waiting out the front of it. That's not going to be an ideal situation.
There have been some reports, just on another matter, Minister, this morning, that some people have been allowed to leave hotel quarantine earlier than expected. Is that something that you're looking into?
Well, I've only just heard those reports myself when I was watching Sky News this morning as well. So I've already asked for some advice as to that. I'd like to think, and I suspect I'm right in saying that it's only done under strict medical advice. Okay.
At what point, and I know you've said that you don't want to do this, but at what point does the government look at shutting down?
Well, that depends on a number of things. But I would have thought that if we go down the road of Victoria, we will then have to start looking at either local lockdown or a return to the lockdown that we saw in the autumn. And that's I want to make it very clear that we will take our last breath defending the people of New South Wales from going back into the lockdown. This is not what we want to be, because, as I've said, some industries won't survive, and that's why I've got to pay tribute and credit to the AHA for actually coming forward and being proactive. And I wish other businesses and other industry associations would be proactive, because if anybody thinks that the hotel industry is the only one that's susceptible to this pandemic, they're kidding themselves.
But is there a figure, that the government has identified as the marker, that if you hit that figure of infected people, then you will shut the state down in the same way that Dan Andrews has done?
Well, that's something that we would take advice from Dr. Kerry Chant on, right. And I think you'll probably find that it would always depend on where that figure came from. If it jumped to 100 because 100 people came in from overseas and went straight to isolation, well, then that's something that is not easily, but it's something that's managed, and it's something that we wouldn't necessarily panic about. But if there was hundreds of undisclosed and unknown cases, well, then, of course, that would create much more concern to the government.
Just finally, what's this story? Krispy Kreme have handed out some 350,000 free donuts. It's a huge number of donuts. What's your response to this? It's attracted a huge number of people, obviously.
Well, yeah, irresponsible. I mean, it's the same reason why the hotels have actually been proactive in making sure that sort of crowd doesn't gather around a hotel. I mean, it is irresponsible, and this is when I talk about the new way of doing business. Well, those sort of promotions, as honourable as they may be and as fun as they may be, and I hate to be seen as somebody that takes away a company's opportunities here, but they need to really sit down and think about these things. And just like we saw yesterday with the opposition leader going to the Crossroads Hotel, it was completely unnecessary, and she only put herself and her staff and the media at risk by going to have that media call there. And that's the way we've got to be very, very conscious of the way we do business now.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the Golden Sheaf possibly facing fines for those crowds out the front. I mean, that's the same. Isn't that the same? You've got these crowds out the front of a Krispy Kreme.
Peter, if I was responsible for handing out the fines in this state, I'd be a very unpopular man. That's why I'm not going to do it.
All right.